Hey, it's Derek from CG Shortcuts, and today we're going to do this. A Mograph Ripple Loop where the materials are affected by the fields.
This video was brought to you by CG Shortcuts Courses, our online training platform where you can take your motion graphic skills to the next level. We've got an ever-growing range of courses in the same straight-to-the-point, easy-to-follow format of our YouTube videos. Each course also comes with loads of project files and downloadable assets, as well as support directly from the course instructor. Our YouTube subscribers get 5% off all courses with the code YouTube5, so check it out today. Now let's get back to the tutorial.
Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is change our project length to 400 frames. Go ahead and drag this over, fill that in. We're gonna click and hold here and add a plane, and we're gonna change that to 700. 700, easy peasy. Next, we're gonna create a spline rectangle. So we're gonna hold this pin, click and hold, and we're gonna choose rectangle. Change the width and height to 4.5. And we're gonna enable rounding, and we're gonna change the rounding to 0.5. Now we need to hold shift and rotate this negative 90 degrees by grabbing the X axis here. We're gonna add a modifier to this, and we're going to create an extrude. So we're gonna click and hold right here and go over to extrude. If we hold Alt while we let go of this, it will automatically apply it to our selected spline there. Its default is 20 centimeters. We're gonna go ahead and change that to 25. And we're gonna hit C to make that editable. Next, we're gonna add a Mograph cloner. So with this selected, we're gonna go over here, go to Mograph. And while we have the cloner selected here, we're gonna hold Alt again. It's gonna automatically put that inside the cloner for us. We're gonna switch this to a grid array, and we're gonna change the count of this. We're gonna change it to 50, 1, and 50. Let's turn on our display shading with the lines here. B is the shortcut for that, just so we can see our objects a little cleaner. Now we're gonna go ahead and go to the size here. We're gonna change this to 600 and 600 in the Z as well. So now with our cloner selected, we're gonna go to Mograph, Effector, add a plane effector. Inside of our plane effector, underneath the parameter tab, we're gonna go ahead and set our Y value of the position to 0 and change the Z value to 20. We're also going to go underneath the scale, checkbox that. Under the X, we're gonna say 1.25. And under the Y, we're gonna say 1.4. Then we're gonna scroll down here underneath the color tab here. We're gonna make sure that field's color is selected. Then we go under fall off, and we're gonna add a torus field. We can click and hold here and add a torus field. And here you can see already that this is going to affect our values. So the way this works is everything in the dark purple lines here inside the torus is going to be affected 100% of the parameters of the plane effector. And then everything as it falls off to outside of this light pink line is not affected at all. So everything between the light pink line and the dark pink line is affected gradually by our plane effector. So for our thickness, we're gonna change this to 25. Make sure you're on frame 0. And for our radius, we're gonna go set this to 0. And we're gonna keyframe that there. We're gonna go to frame 200, and we're gonna set this to 442. And we're gonna keyframe that there. So next, we're gonna modify our torus and add some things on top of it. And we're gonna go ahead and click and hold this clamp tool, and we're gonna add delay. And it's kind of like an ease in, ease out. And then we're gonna also add a decay. So click and drag and choose decay. Now, decay is gonna just make things linger. So as this grows and then the fall off passes, it's just gonna have this nice kind of subtle delay where things are just kind of fading a little slower. Okay, so it's very important that your decay is on the top of your list here. If it is in the middle, it will appear that it will work right in your viewport, but when you go to render it, it will actually not. But if you put your decay back at the very top, it will render correctly and match your viewport. Very important. Next thing we're gonna wanna do is with our cloner selected again, we're gonna go ahead to Mograph and add an effector, and we're gonna add a random effector this time. Woo, and it goes crazy. So we're gonna need to change the parameters for this random effector, and we're gonna change this to 0, x0, y0, and the Z we're set to 5. And then we're gonna click the scale, and we're gonna click uniform scale, and we're just gonna choose 0.13. Just a very slight bit of variation there. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and go to fall off. Go ahead and create another torus field and do the exact same thing. Frame 0, we're gonna say 0, click, thickness 25. We're gonna go to frame 200, and we're gonna set this to 442, click. So that way we have this nice kind of random growth and random decay. So it's not just perfectly uniform, it's gonna have this nice kind of fall off and a more organic feel to it. Set, we're going to go ahead and add a decay to this as well. But this decay, we're going to set to 84% for the strength. And that's just going to allow that decay to just take a little bit longer before it falls back into its default position. Now we need to make this loopable. We're going to click our random object and select all the way down to our plane torus field. And we're going to hit Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. And we're going to copy and then Control V to paste, 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 paste. So first thing we need to do is we need to offset each of these by 50 frames. So we're going to grab random one and plane one, click and drag and select in your timeline and move it up to frame 50. Go to the same thing with 2, 3, and 4, and we're just going to keep scooting it up. 2 would go to 100, 3 would go to 150, 4 will go to 200. We made 4 copies of our plane effector and 4 copies of our random effector. Now what we need to do is inside of our cloner, we need to make sure that all of these effectors are added to this list. So we can click this little icon here and just go ahead and add these to it. So now that we have 4 copies of our effectors and they're all offset by 50 frames, we should be able to take 50 frames from the middle of this and it will loop perfectly. Now let's make our materials. We're going to go to Create, Redshift, Material. Double click that to open it up, and we're going to make this our black material. So we're going to go ahead and choose a color. We're going to go with 7% black, and we're going to go with a roughness value of 0.5. I'm just going to keep it real simple like that. We're going to change the IOR to 1.32, and that's going to give it this nice plastic look. Then we're going to create another material, Redshift Material. Open that up, and we're going to go with the gold preset. But we're going to change it because it doesn't really look like what we want. So what we want to do is change the roughness to 0.363, and we're going to change the reflective color to these values: H28, saturation 74, and then 65. And then for the metal edge tint, we're going to choose these values: 36, 74, and 100. Okay, so now we've got this nice kind of bronze material. Feel free to use whatever material or color palette you want. So now what we need to do is create a material that we can put on this cloner, which is made up of one object that will react with the colors we have from our Mograph effector here. So what we're going to do is go to Create, Redshift Material. We're going to double click the name in here. We're going to call this Blend. Double click that to open it up. And we're going to go ahead and delete this Redshift material. What we're going to do is we're going to go underneath the Materials tab here. And we're going to pull in a Material Blender. And we're going to plug that into the surface. Then we're going to grab our black material, and just click and drag it up, and it's going to create a reference material. We'll see with that black material selected here. Then we're going to go ahead and do the same with our bronze material. So what we want to do in order to use the field colors from our Mograph effector is we need to go underneath Utilities, go to User Data, and then Color User Data. Inside of that, we have Attribute Name, and we have this little arrow. Twirl that down and go to Mograph Color, and that's going to be driven by that. So let's go ahead and drag this onto our cloner and then plug our color user data straight into the output. And we'll go ahead and hit Render Preview on this. See, these are the colors we're getting from our field colors. Now, these aren't very good looking colors, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in here to Textures, and we're going to go grab a ramp, plug that in, go to our color user data, plug it into the ramp, and then that ramp into the output surface. And now we see we have this nice grayscale. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this black up a little bit and pull this dot over towards the white a bit. So we have kind of a nice black to white fall off. What we're going to do is we're going to use these black and white values to blend this material. So the way it works is the value of the material that's black is going to be one of these materials, and the material that's white is going to be the other. So if you look at our scene here, we see that the black material is going to be our material that is being affected by the Mograph force, while the white material is the default material we want it to be. Plug the bronze material into the base color, and then plug this ramp into the layer 1 blend color 1, and then the black material into the layer 1 color. So the way that works is now it's going to use this data to blend that copper and black together. So if we plug this into our scene, there we go. Everything that was black is now copper, and everything that was white is now black. And this will look a lot better once we add some lights. Let's go ahead and grab that black material and throw it on our plane just for a nice background. Okay, now that we have our animation and our materials, let's go ahead and add lights. So we're going to go to Redshift, Lights, Area Light. And we're going to go ahead and turn the intensity down to 10. And we're going to set the size to 550 by 450 underneath the general tab here. We're going to go to Mograph Cloner. We're going to drag our area light into that cloner, change it to radial. Change the count down to 3 and the radius up to 800. Underneath the transform tab, we're going to change this to -41 for the pitch. And underneath the coordinates tab, we're going to rotate our entire cloner -90 degrees on the pitch as well. Then we're going to bring it up 550 in the y-axis. And that's going to go ahead and put these lights in just a nice array above our scene here. Now that we have our lighting set up, we're going to go ahead and create our camera. So for the Redshift camera, standard camera, what we're going to want to do is just zoom in here a little bit and tilt down. If we hold Alt and middle mouse click, you'll see it brings up the pan view, and we have that little plus sign there. So really we want that plus sign to kind of be right below the middle of our animation here. And we're going to hold Alt and left click as well and kind of drag that over. So we kind of want this framed up so that stuff is kind of right above the middle. And we can see we don't have the edges of it shown or anything like that. So if you want those exact coordinates, you can pause the video and type those in right here. They're located right down here. Okay, so now next thing we want to do is create some cool depth of field effect. So we're going to go to our Redshift camera and to go to the Object tab, choose the focus distance, and we're going to click this bottom piece here that's sticking up at frame 73. And then we're going to go to our Redshift camera tag, go underneath the bokeh tab, enable, override, and enable. Change the COC radius to 2 and the power to 50. Now that's really high for the power, but we're kind of creating a macro lens effect. There's not a lot of depth here. This is like a few centimeters difference. So really we're not really creating a super shallow depth of field. So what we can do now is go to Redshift render view. So you can see our depth of field is very blurry up here, very blurry down here, but in the middle it's nice and clean. So now what we need to do is go into our Redshift post effects by choosing this little gear. If you can't see this, you just need to, you can find it by twirling down that arrow. And we're going to go in here and we're going to enable color controls. We're going to change the contrast to 0.01, which just is a very tiny little adjustment. Change the photographic exposure. We're going to enable that. And we're going to change this f-stop down to 6. We're going to increase the vignetting so we have this nice kind of vignette look to 12. Then we're going to turn on bloom. And we're going to lower our bloom threshold just a bit so we have that nice shine. So we're going to do 12.6 for that. And we're going to pull the softness down to like 0.125. Probably be a nice balance there. For render settings, we are going to make sure we have Redshift selected as our renderer. Underneath the GI, we're going to change this to brute force. Set the number of bounces to 6 and the GI number of rays to 256. Then under the basics tab, we're going to go down to our sample overrides. Make sure we have reflection checked and do 256 and light checked 256. And then under our unified sampling, because we're using depth of field, the only thing that affects depth of field is the unified sampling. There's no override for it. Underneath the unified sampling, we're going to set this to 128 for the minimum and 256 for the maximum and change the adaptive threshold to 0.003. Then underneath the output, make sure you're set to HD TV, 1920 by 1080. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to set our frame range from 100 to 174. And the reason we're going to do that is because the way the decay works, it doesn't work right off the bat and it takes it a few frames to kick in. Even though your animation will play right in the viewport, when you go to render it, if you start at frame 100, that frame 100 is not going to have decay. So we're going to have to render out a few extra frames at the beginning until the decay kicks in. Then we can get our 50 frame loop. Really important also for the decay to work properly, you need to make sure that your viewport is set to frame 0 at the very start, because if it's not, it will kind of mess it up as well. So back to frame 0, frame 100 to frame 174. So if we go in here and see what that looks like, you can see on frame 100, there's no decay. It doesn't look right. You see how here there's decay, go back here, there's no decay. But if we slide this up to frame 125, now we go from frame 125 to 174, which is 50 frames long, and we've made it loop every 50 frames. The decay will actually work, and we'll have a perfect loop. So in order to save that, we're just going to go up here to this little floppy disk, change it to animation, change it to MP4, and then we're going to choose 125 to frame 174. And then you can hit OK. Lastly, I want to show you why the material blender is a really cool choice for this project. We can bring in more materials. So let's say we had more materials available in our scene. We can double click our blend material. We go ahead and open up our Redshift render view so we can look at this. So we have our blend material open. But let's say we have other materials in our scene and we don't really like the combination that we have here, or we want to change it to something else. or even wanted to keyframe it to change at a certain point, you totally could, because all you have to do is click this little arrow for the reference and then choose a different material. So I can choose this blue, and then for the other material, I could choose this pink, and it's gonna update automatically and you automatically have this cool thing where the materials are alternating separately. So if you wanted to add this pink to the plane, you can have this really nice, cool color palette here, and you can do it with any material you have. You can change whatever you want, gold. It's just picking and clicking. Very easy. Man, that is just oddly satisfying. As usual, you can download the project files below to save a bit of time, or head over to our website where you can download every project file from every tutorial we've ever made. If you're interested in learning more about Redshift, you can check out my Introduction to Redshift course on cgshortcuts.com. There's a link below in the description. Big thanks to this month's patrons. You guys are the best, and there's no way we could make all these tutorials without your support. Thank you so much. That's it for now. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching. Let me know what you want to see in the comment section down below, or you can leave a like or dislike. And don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell icon for more videos and free stuff. There's loads of extra resources on our website, and you can win epic CG prizes in our monthly challenges. Check out cgshortcuts.com for more details. Catch you next time.